Well, this is part 3 of assembling the wooden scroll saw that is drill powered. And this is the part that actually produces the action, in that I'm going to be discussing the drivetrain. It's got 3 pieces, 3 major pieces, and they're very important to have all lined up properly, so I'm going to spend a little extra effort trying to show you how to put these things together and make sure that they're nice and straight. This is what the drivetrain looks like. The 3 major pieces with several minor pieces in there. But this is how you turn rotational energy from the drill into vertical motion. And I want to deal with the actual centerpiece first, and then I'll deal with the other 2 pieces, because this is the action. This is where it all takes place. Now this is the cam that makes things happen. And these are both 4-inch 5/16 by 18 thread hex bolts. And they must stay stationary. They shouldn't move at all in rotation. Now this is in fact a 3.5 inch circle, and although this is cool looking, I don't believe for a minute that you have to have these cutouts in there. It's just not got enough mass to make a difference there, so I would suggest you make your life a lot easier. Just make a 3.5 inch diameter circle, and the drive shaft that connects to the drill is right square in the middle of it, and then 1 1/8 inch out from that center line is the center of your actuator bolt. So that in fact gives you a 2 1/4 inch throw approximately of the blade as it goes up and down. Both of these bolts are in fact threaded into the wood, which is a 9/32 hole with a 5/16 thread put through there, and I do that on the drill press to make sure that it goes in absolutely square, and I just apply some pressure and turn the mechanism by hand so that it doesn't rip anything out. And it's pretty easy because this is fairly soft wood, so those are nice and square, and that's the cam actuator. Well, I decided after putting this together, and from the experience I've had over the last year, I decided that I was going to pull this drivetrain back apart and actually epoxy the bolts into place. I have no intention of pulling this apart again, but I certainly don't want them unbolting themselves, unscrewing themselves through the wood. So I'm just going to add this extra level of security to epoxy these before I bolt them back in. The next piece to look at is called the bearing mount, and this is the piece that holds everything in place. It's solidly screwed down onto the base. It's got 3 screws in the top holding this foot in place, and it's got 3 going in from the bottom that should roughly line up with the axle line. And what you'll find is that this is 3 1/4 inches tall in this dimension, or about 8 centimeters, 8.2 centimeters. This dimension is 2 inches across, and it's a circle, so what you want to do is just get yourself a 1 inch radius along there, and that center line is going to be the axle line. And you can see that on both sides they're countersunk, And what's very important to this whole mechanism is the bearings. And these are skateboard bearings, and they're almost a perfect 7/8 of an inch. So they pop right into a 7/8 inch countersink in there. And then the axle will turn very, very freely. So that's the piece that you want. The base is this is 3 3/4 inches long, and the important part about this is it's 3 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and you want to glue that up prior to drawing the shapes out, and then cut it with a perfectly square bandsaw blade. And the reason that I say that is you really want this surface to be absolutely square to that surface, so that it sits, when it's sitting on it, it's going to be exactly parallel to the base plate. And it'd be a real good idea if this surface is also square, so that you can line the axle up with a square on the base plate. So you can pick up those bearings on eBay or Amazon. They're relatively inexpensive. They generally come in boxes of 8, I think, so you're going to end up with more than you need on this particular project. But I'll bet you'll be able to find something else to do. But that's the piece that's going to hold the whole drivetrain solidly in place. And the third piece of this drivetrain is called the pivot arm. And this also is 3 pieces of that 3/4 inch plywood glued together. And it's very important that you cut this out when it's all together. And what you're doing there is about an inch with a little extra space, maybe 1 1/16", because this part attaches right to the 1 inch saw arm. So you want to have a little clearance there, but not a lot. And overall, this is 5 inches, and that axle is 3/4 of an inch, or what should be 19 centimeters, I guess, up from the bottom. This is also going to have bearings put in it, so you want to countersink those with a 7/8 inch Forstner bit, and then probably want to countersink first, and then put your 5/16 hole through there, and you'll line up pretty perfectly. You want to be fairly accurate on one side to the other. Let's see, I forgot to give the, well, let's see, guys, I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is 1 3/4 inches deep, or 4+ centimeters. You have an axle through there that is merely a contact, and it's a 1/2 inch down from the top, or 12.5 millimeters. And that axle is going to go through there and through a hole in the arm, the saw arm, and it's just meant to hold in place. So that's not really going to be moving very much. That's just an up and down. And to keep it in place, there's an Allen set screw just threaded into there, and that's real easy to just tighten that down and hold it in place. And the width of the bottom down by the axle is 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, or 3.85 centimeters. And if you care to, the top dimension looks like 2.8 centimeters, or 1 1/8. So you can taper that up to the top if you wish, or not, depending on how you feel about it. But that's the thing that's going to give you the vertical motion onto the sawing arm. So now to assemble this, what I like to do is put a washer in underneath the bearing so that none of the bearing moving parts are actually hitting wood. So we'll put One of those on each side and hope that I can get the axle through it. And with a little finagling to get past those washers. Another washer on that side. And then what's going to happen is to have two bolts go on the drive side, and these do not want to be tight up against the bearing, they want to be loose a little bit. There's going to be a lock washer in between the two nuts. And you want to secure those down. And that's still a little too tight right there. I don't have any movement there, so that's where we're going to tighten them to. Okay, the actuator. And this needs a couple of washers so that stays away from the cam. I'm going to put a lock washer on there. Just a little tight. Cinch that one down. And that baby's all ready to go. That's where the drill connects to. Now's the time to get this drivetrain put in place. And a couple of things that I really want to have happen here are that this be exactly lined up in the proper plane for what I want to do here. So I'm going to get this put through, and I'm going to be fighting the spring just a little bit under this circumstance. But all in all, I think that's not a bad thing to have happen. So what I'm going to try and do is line up the center line of the bolt in both cases. And that appears pretty good to me right there. Thanks for watching part 3 of this scroll saw assembly. Coming up in part 4, we're going to finish it off. We're going to put the working plate into position and show you how to tension up the blade and maybe even cut a little bit. Come on back.